We met in a line at the Sawdust Coffee Shop in Putnam, Connecticut. It's a cool place that I like to go to every once in a while. And there was the woman that you're with was in front of me in line, and I think it was a Badlands shirt she was wearing. Was it
Yeah,
Badlands?
it's a good memory. Yeah, we're super into the vintage clothes and obviously paying respect to all the great bands. So yeah, she was rocking a Badlands t-shirt, and I think that's how it might have caught your eye.
That's it. That's exactly why, because I'm not one of those guys that's going to ignore something like that because I lived in LA all the 80s and most of the 90s, and I had a lot of friends that were Badland. I thought they were pretty good. I was sad when their singer died
Right.
at such a young age. Jakey Lee was their guitar player, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Badass dude.
real good. Um, where exactly are you from, Mike? Are you from Boston area or?
Yeah. So me individually, right? So I grew up in Milford, Massachusetts.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
the band is known to be a Boston band, right? Just like Aerosmith, like the Cars, because the five of us, well, there's six of us now, but the five of us, when we started Bad Marriage, we're all from different towns. Me and our drummer are from Milford, Massachusetts, but the other guys are from, I would say neighboring or basically central Massachusetts towns, I guess. So yeah, I mean, we kind of just say we're from Boston because it's easier for
Yeah, of
everybody to
course.
to know. I mean, I lived there for 11 years in the city. We rehearsed there for the first half of Bad Marriage. Now we're here just because it's cheaper and it's actually very convenient for me because I have my studio here. But so again, nutshell, I'm from Milford, Mass. And
If you go down Route 16 and keep driving, you'll go where I'm from, Webster, Mass.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So yeah,
Yep.
I had a feeling you guys were from Central Mass
Yeah.
area. Um, so when you were growing up in Milford, do you remember the first music you started listening to? Like what were you listening to, say, when you were a teenager?
Yeah, well, even before that, I just remember, my dad had a jukebox in the house, when I was really young, before him and my mom got divorced. I have just very little memories of it, but um, I remember Zeppelin 2. I remember on that jukebox, it was a Seaberg, and we still have it. I have it in
Wow.
storage. It's a crazy story, but I ended up getting it back from someone that he sold it to while he was alive, and then like I tracked it down, and I ended up getting it back, which was really cool. It needs a little maintenance, but again, not to get off on a tangent, but I remember hearing
That's
um,
not a tangent. That's a good story, actually. Were those 45s in there?
they were, but obviously the Seaberg was a 57 or so, it was the late 50s
Holy
jukebox, but
smokes.
my dad had put 70s upgrade. I remember Chubby Checker was in there. I remember um, a ton of cool stuff. But the most thing I remember was the sound of Jimmy Page, and I remember Zeppelin 2. I remember Heartbreaker, the single was on there, and
Yeah.
that just beginning riff always stuck with me. And as a teenager, I've started there. My mom was more of a Fleetwood Mac type, and her boyfriend at the time was cranking the Beatles and Paul McCartney. So I loved that. I loved Zeppelin. I loved Floyd. Everything around that kind of stuff. The Allman Brothers, all that kind of
70s.
stuff. Yeah,
70s
loved it.
bands. Yeah, that
You
was the
know,
best decade, I think, for music, actually.
right? And then when I remember, hearing the edgy stuff, like when Appetite for Destruction came out and all of that stuff, I was like just blown away. I was a little kid. So I had a little jean jacket in fourth and fifth grade that had my grandmother, God rest her soul, she sewed all my Guns N' Roses patches on my little jean jacket. I had my little candy cigarettes in school, and I thought I was a badass. So I guess that those are the early iterations of me, kind of figuring out or discovering rock and roll. But in high school, I mean, so much good music from the 70s. I had all that already. I was loving it. The 80s, the 90s, I thought were insane too. I liked, Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and Rage Against the Machine and all these just new sounds. And they were so dark and they were so heavy. It was just so different. And even Nirvana and there's so many to name. The
You've
whole
named quite a
grunge
few.
era, Pearl Jam. I mean, all of this stuff was brand new, and I was just taking it all in, and I loved it all. I wasn't one of those people that really stuck to one genre. I appreciated it
Yeah.
all.
I,
So
I resemble that totally. So you were getting this early, first the Zeppelin and then the 80s bands. What about playing? Did you start playing guitar at a young age?
I, you know, I didn't actually. I didn't. Well, I guess that's subjective. How young of an age you start, but I really didn't start till I believe freshman or sophomore year in high school. I know a lot of kids start when they're really young, but I just remember we had a half day, and we used to party on half days. We'd get out early and figure out whose house we were going to
Right.
bring cases of beer and do whatever high school kids did. And um, we actually everyone, the word got out that there was a jam session or, there's a band and let's go see him at this kid Mike's house. Now, this kid Mike ends up being my drummer. Still to this day in bad marriage, but I was not friends with him in high school. I didn't know him. So, I moseyed my way over there and witnessed him playing with a couple of our friends, our high school schoolmates, and I was just floored. I'm seeing these kids walk by me in the halls in high school, and then I'm seeing them play, all the coolest songs that were on the radio or whatever, and I'm just like, dude, I was just, I was, I was flabbergasted, I
Yeah.
guess the word was. So then, that led to me asking my grandmother to, that telling her that I want a guitar, and that was my first guitar. It was $200, and I just had a bunch of friends that played, and they were way more advanced than me, and I just used to hang out with them and bother them a lot to teach me stuff.
What was that Milford High School that you went to?
Yeah, Milford High.
Wow. Yeah, you
Yeah,
you gave me a flashback. I'm a little older than you, but I remember one of our friends in high school had a trailer. And we used
yeah,
to go to that trailer when Rock and Roll Over album came out by Kiss. We
yeah.
must have listened to that record like every day for like a whole month. I
I'm
was more of
sure.
a Queen fan in high school, and back then, kids are like, I don't know what to make of those guys.
Yeah,
But so all my friends were into Kiss. And there was one guy who liked all of Clapton stuff, like Derek and the Dominoes, Cream,
right,
all of that. But it was mostly Kiss.
right.
Doing the same thing, smoking weed, drinking beer,
Yep,
listening
yep.
to that music. It's a great time back then because there was no
Definitely.
social media.
No, everything was outside. We were partying in trails and quarries. Milford is famous for having a couple quarries, so
Oh,
we
the
just had a ton of spots where we would light fires and just party and crank music and yeah, everyone had a blast.
okay. Did you ever jump off the Ultimate at the Uxbridge quarries?
No, it's funny because my mom moved out to Uxbridge. She still is in Uxbridge, so I'm very familiar with Uxbridge. But as a Milford kid, I stuck to Milford. I stuck to the Milford quarries. We had one called Shadowbrook, and the other one was called Chicken Shit. But those were really cool and cool hangout spots. But no, I didn't really venture out to any other ones.
Yeah, I was chicken shit because I didn't jump off the Ultimate, which was like 45 feet. I did the one that was like 21, and I was still scared when I
Yeah,
jumped in it. I was like, make sure someone's down there when I jump in because you don't know what the hell's down there.
right. We had one cliff we called the Bird, so it was at the top of the cliff, but there was a boulder sitting on top of the cliff. So you had to clear. If you jumped from the boulder, I think that was called doing the Bird or whatever, and you had to clear the cliff. So it got pretty crazy. I think I ended up doing that once or twice, and then I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna chill but watch you guys jump, and I'll have a couple beers. But
What were we thinking back down
yeah,
there?
yeah.
All right, so you get a guitar in high school towards it, sophomore, junior, whatever you said. When
Right.
did you start? When did you get in a band right away, or did you take lessons? How'd you get it going?
Yeah, yeah, I did take a few lessons, but unfortunately I was never consistent with it. It cost money too. It wasn't
Yeah.
cheap. So, I'd convince my mom, I want to do some lessons and stuff. And I'm sure she helped me out. I don't really remember, but I remember taking them at Milford called the Music Nook from a teacher. I think his name was Steev. But, when I mean taking a lesson, I'm talking 2 months maybe. And then I
Right.
would stop. We didn't have YouTube. I mean, if we had YouTube for lessons and, we had books. So I used to buy a lot of the tablature books, like, again, Zeppelin books, Metallica, anything that I was listening to at the time. And again, I had friends that taught me a lot. But as far as actually getting together with a drummer or something, it wasn't till I had almost graduated from high school. I'd say junior year or senior year, when I felt comfortable to actually get the confidence to play with a bass player and a drummer and a singer. But, we did a few, parties, house parties and stuff.
The way you
Um,
start.
yeah, right before I went to college, um, I was in a band again with our same drummer that stuck with me now. But we were in different colleges, so we had great plans to stay together, and he would come visit me. I went to UMass Amherst out in Western Mass.
Zoomass.
Yeah, yeah. So he came out there, left his drums up there with me, and we played a couple of shows up at UMass.
Did you have a
Um,
name of your band at that time?
yeah, then we were called Drink Fist, like Drink Fist.
Sounds like a hardcore band.
We were heavy, but we were more like a. Well, I
Covers?
called it
Cover
heavy
band?
rock, almost like a Stone Temple Pilots sound. You
Was it a
know,
cover band or were you
no, I was never. I've never been in a cover band. I've
good for
always just been
you?
in originals. Yeah.
Did you
Um,
write? Did you start writing at a young age?
oh yeah, it was. It's always been kind of the same way it is now. It's with me kind of being the foundation or the backbone of the band or whatever project we were doing,
I'm
which
going to
is a
get into
bless.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely want to get into that with you in a minute because I want to know the songwriting process.
no
So,
problem.
I think I read that Bad Marriage started in 2016. Did you do a lot before that?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I've been in bands my whole life. Bad Marriage. I think probably
Any
2015.
any
Go ahead.
recording bands?
Like, well, yeah, I mean, every band puts out something, whether
Demos?
it's a
Yeah.
yeah demos, with a couple CDs. And I mean, Drink Fist, we had two different singers. Um, the first singer we had, we put out a full length album. We were kids. We were kids, so it's. I listen to it now and kind of laugh. There's some good stuff, but there's some stuff that I'm like, oh man, I know what I know now as far as, just experience and stuff. But yeah, I've been in a bunch of bands, but it it took everything I've learned being in those bands, whether it's how to deal and live with bandmates, how to on an everyday basis, how to write songs, how to deal with the studio, how to operate in everyday life, in at shows, not at shows, on now on social media. So when my last band had broke up, we were called Empire Street. We were living in Boston. We had a name called the LA Mob, and the LA was for Lower Alston. That's where I lived.
Austin Rock
Um,
City.
yeah, yeah. So we were called the LA Mob, and we were doing really good around there. And we thought we'd kind of exhausted what we were doing, and we weren't getting any offers, tour offers, any record label stuff. So we changed the name to Empire Street. We changed up our sound a little bit. And again, long story short, when that band finally ended, I said, I'm going to do one more band. I'm going to take everything I know from all my previous bands, all my experience. And I kind of handpicked everybody from the scene, people that I knew that were cool, people I knew that had what I thought had what it took, to take a band to the next level. Cause I've always got to a level, where we were cool, we were good, we had a decent following, but we never got tour offers. We never, I always wanted to see the rest of the world or the rest of
Yeah.
the country, so that's kind of how Bad Marriage started. I said, I'm gonna start one last rock band and handpick everybody, and I'm gonna go out swinging if it doesn't happen.
Well, I have to say, I think that it's a perfect name for a band.
Yeah, yeah.
because I've been in the van, I've been on the tour buses, I've been around the bands my whole life, so I kind of have seen it all, and that's a
Yeah.
perfect name for a band. Have you always been into like the pretty much straightforward hard rock kind of sound, or did you ever venture off musically into any? Because you guys are pretty like, I'm not going to say mainstream, but you're pretty much straightforward rock, far as I can hear.
Yeah, I mean, again, speaking for myself, like I always listen to bands like, I listen to everything. I mean, you'd be super surprised if I told you, a lot of bands that or just different, things that I listen to, and maybe we can get into that. But, as far as a guitar player, I've always, my kind of wheelhouse has been the hard rock. I love the heavy riffs. I love the catchy heaviness of, Sabbath riffs, Dio, like bands that blurred the line between rock and metal.
Yeah.
The Scorpions. I love them. I love AC/DC. I mean, just
Def Leppard.
memorable.
You probably like
Oh,
Def Leppard too.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we could go on for days, but you get the point.
Yeah.
I always liked that bands that have a signature sound, that you just know it's them. I mean, you hear a Scorpion song, you hear a Def Leppard song, you hear AC/DC, oh yeah, that's Guns N' Roses, and you just, so I've that's kind of always what resonated with me with my writing style. And again, started with Zeppelin. I was a huge Zeppelin fan. And so Jimmy Page was definitely a huge influence on me early on. But yeah, so I guess
I
that's
hear it,
my,
man. I hear it. I hear it in your
and
music.
Aerosmith too. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
I can't forget them because, everyone has an Aerosmith story, no matter if you're from around here,
Joe lived
you
in
know,
Hopedale, right?
yeah, right next to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew
Yeah.
up in Aerosmith's neighborhood, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay. So in 2017, I know you put an EP out, and I read somewhere there were only 100 copies of that thing.
Yeah.
That's valuable. What was the songwriting process? Because I think you told me you started. Have you been the primary songwriter from the beginning? And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how
And
does it work? Do you write just the music or the lyrics too?
yeah, I would say a good chunk of both. And it's just the way I've always done it. And again, we all have our, like, even our jobs as a band, like we can get into that too. Like it's how I handpick the guys, has really worked. But as far as songwriting goes, I do a lot of the recording
Yeah, I
and
was going
mix
to
it.
talk to you about that because I know you're the
Yeah, yeah.
engineer
So
also. Yeah.
right. So even before that, I've just been a riff writer my whole life. I've always liked to write my own stuff. Like you asked me earlier, was that a cover band you were in? And no, I've always just been fascinated with writing and creating my own stuff. So I just always have been writing and had a ton of riffs. And when I started Bad Marriage, like previous bands, I always had a big, a plethora of riffs. So we always have good starting points of songs, because I'll have this riff that goes into that. I might have an idea for a chorus, a theme of a song. A lot of times I come up with a theme, maybe a title of it with a couple catchphrases, and then I'll let Johnny, our singer, run wild with it, and then he'll work on it, bring it back to me, and then I'll proof it. I'll go, okay, well, I like what you did there, but here, let's work on this together. So there is a process. I would say 90% of the time, I have a good idea of what the song should sound like. I have a vision of the end game of the song. Now that's not to say it can't change, and we can't come up with something that cooler. But for the most part, yeah, I would say I start everything and have a good idea of where it should end up.
Totally get it. So, I imagine you recorded the first EP, and then I know you recorded the first full length. Can you talk about what it was like? Because you guys really progressed from Knock Three Times to the self-titled
Yeah.
album. Can you talk about that period?
Yeah, so in all my other bands before, I always loved the studio atmosphere. I was the guy that everyone would do their studio parts, right? Drums, someone would do the bass, and they'd go, "All right, I'm out of here." I'm going home to my couch, to my video games, to my girlfriend, whatever. You get the point. I was the one who just stayed. I could sit in a recording studio for 12 hours and watch the engineer stare at a screen. Like literally, I didn't even know what he was doing, but every time he would do something and then press the play button, I would love to hear the differences and see, kind of be that annoying kid that would go, oh, what'd you do there? And I had a really cool mentor, Jim. His name is Jim Foster, who did most of our early recordings in all of my early bands. So I got to hang out with him, and he kind of, showed me a lot of stuff, and he still does to this day. And so when my last band broke up, how I mentioned earlier, I said, you know what, I'm going to just buy a lot of recording gear. So I had some money saved up. I probably sold some gear, some guitars, some amps, and I bought a lot of starter recording gear. And I taught myself, and I had friends to kind of guide me and show me the way, to help me get to a point,
Yeah.
make sure I didn't buy the wrong stuff. And,
Uh-huh.
so I just started teaching myself. And then when I started Bad Marriage, I had a decent grip on recording. And that's where that Knock Three More Times EP came in, where we did it in Watertown. And I was living in Watertown at the time. And I did it in the basement next to a pool table. I had this little desk, and it's cool for what it is, but, I just kept wanting to learn and, learn the process and get better at not only recording, mixing, mastering, and songwriting. So I kind of just was trying to do it all. And here I am.
I've heard that about you. I've heard all this about you, and I admire it, man. I admire you're
Yeah,
kind of like Jimmy Page was with Led Zeppelin.
right.
So the first album, did you do that in a home studio too, or did you go to a recording studio?
Oh yeah, everything. So yeah, the first two albums. So we have the EP, then we
Yeah.
have Bad Marriage self-titled, which has
Yes.
12 songs, and then we have Bad Marriage 2 with the tape head guy on the cover. Those first two ones, yeah, I did that, all in my home studio.
Well, in
Um,
between the first one and the second, there was a pandemic, so that must have been a really difficult kind of period there. How did you work all that out?
yeah, it was difficult, but it really gave me a lot of time. So I didn't. I tried not to sit, stare at the wall, and woe is me kind of thing. And I was like, well, we're gonna do this record, and you know, uh, look, I had nothing else to do. So I think I honed my skills a lot, being in front of it all day and writing. And again, yeah, just like anything, if you put the time in, it's going to produce. You're going to get better. I mean, you would think, you would hope. So
So there was pretty significant progression, I think, between the first record and the second record. I mean, did you feel like the band had grown a lot? You didn't become a six piece until after that, correct?
yeah, so to answer your first question, I do think we've grown. My biggest thing with Bad Marriage is I wanted to have a sound. I wanted to be like those bands that if you hear us and and you're like, oh, that's the latest from Bad Marriage, right? Because our singer's voice. We have I wanted to create a certain sound of the guitars, of the drums, and just of that, that it's Bad Marriage. And I think we were starting to get there by that second full length tape head. I call it Bad Marriage 2. Like Led Zeppelin 2. So yeah, I think we progressed. I think sonically, my recording skills improved a little bit. I think the album sounds better. But some people may argue it. There's always going to be people that like the rawness and the, of the earlier recordings rather than a polished sound. But I'm happy with all of it.
Well,
And
bands
then
progress, and if people can't understand that, then, then
yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
we're all guilty of it. I like certain earlier records better than newer ones. It's just,
yeah.
it is what it is. Um, but so after the second album came out, Bad Marriage 2, is when we did another EP called Artificial Mind. And that was the first album that I didn't have the steering wheel with recording.
Brian Wheat did that one.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me
So
go back for a second here.
sure.
You put out Bad Marriage 2 on vinyl. Did you put the first record out on vinyl
Yeah.
also?
Yes, we did.
Wow.
Yeah, and we still have a few copies left. Yeah, it's
Oh,
cool.
I'm going to talk to you about that when we're done. I
Okay,
love
cool. Yeah.
vinyl. To me, the only way to listen to music, I listen to streaming and CDs, but
Yeah.
vinyl, it's the end all for me, you know. And
Totally.
I'm
Totally.
glad it's made a big comeback. I think that's awesome that you guys was the EP on vinyl too, or was that just a
No,
demo?
no. The EP was cool. It was just a hundred CD thing that we just did might have been a pre-order. I forget, but it went quick. The hundred. I think we let 80 or 85 of them out, and then 15 I think we kept for friend. Like we all kept a couple. I think, or but yeah, they went pretty quick.
Before we get to Artificial Mind, because I love that song and the danger, I want to Dangerous is after that. But
Yeah.
were you getting support from, I mean, talk about first the support you were getting locally from radio and press, whatever, and then talk about when the band said, okay, we got to go on the road now and we got to do that too.
Yeah. Well, we basically how it started was when we started getting a buzz, around here playing. We were playing shows, but again, we like to think we knew what we were doing. We've been around the block playing rock shows our whole life, so we were strategic. We didn't play too much, but we tried to play shows that would, we knew we could make the bar owners happy because we don't want, we never want to play too much and have it be like, oh, Bad Marriage, they don't really bring anybody. So we tried to make them events, like
Right.
that people wanted to come to. And so we started packing some places, whether it was in Worcester or Boston or, so, New Hampshire. We were trying to play Rhode Island and do whatever we could. And then we started getting calls to open for bands, as a local support act. And some early ones, we had a really good run at the Palladium in Worcester where we built a great relationship with the owner there, John, and their booking guy. So they would put us on shows that they knew that we would help sell tickets. A couple early shows we did there. One we did with Dawkin. Another one they put us on was just us and Extreme. So
Nice.
Extreme was, yeah. So that was downstairs, the big room. It sold out, and it was amazing because it was very early in the Bad Marriage,
Yeah, I remember
days.
hearing about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a really good show for us, and then we were doing Boston ones. We played with Eddie Money. We played with Scott Weiland at the Strand at Lupo's. Right before he died, Eddie Money was at the Roxy, which is called
Eddie
Royale.
Money.
Yeah, so we were doing some cool stuff, and ultimately, what kind of projected us to get kind of out of just the local support thing was we had got a call to support Tesla for three nights, and it was the Boston House of Blues, and then it was the Hampton Beach Casino
Casino.
Ballroom,
Yeah, that's a
and
big
then it
room.
was the a place in Portland, Maine called Club Aura, and unbelievable place. We're playing there in February with Vandenberg, and we've played there a couple times. It's a great place. But anyway, when we got that call, I was like, wow, this is the first time we've done, three different venues. So we called it a little mini tour. And
It was a mini tour. It's a
yeah,
mini tour.
yeah. And we still have, trying to find it around here. Someone made me a pillow with the original T-shirt we made, and we called it. It was in the spring, so we called it Bad Marriage Spring Nor'easter, meaning it was like a short storm of Bad Marriage shows, and it's a cool shirt. And it was to kind of commemorate that tour. But that was when I met Brian Wheat after the first show in House of Blues. When we showed up to the show in Maine, we were loading in, and he had stopped all of us and said, guys, can I talk to you guys in a private room? That's what he said. And I was just, me being the kind of the manager type dude, I'm like shaking my head, like, what did one of you guys do last night at the House of Blues? So, and if you know Brian, he has that sort of demeanor to him. But long story short, he complimented us and said, look, what really resonated was he said, I really like the way you guys carry yourself. And, and that was basically what sold him. It wasn't necessarily the music, the sound. It was like, look, I think your singer's good. He wasn't blowing smoke like the show, like the title of it. He wasn't saying you guys are going to be the greatest thing. He was like, look, I like the way you guys carry yourself. I got a small record label. I got a recording studio in Sacramento. I got a Neve console. I can make you guys sound really good, blah, blah, blah. So he was giving us the sales pitch, but he ultimately liked the band, and that's how it started. And I'm sure we're going to talk, but that's how we ended up recording that EP with him, the Artificial Mind one.
When were those Tesla dates? So they were like 2022 or something like that?
No, that was 2018.
Oh, I thought but you met Brian that long ago?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had a long relationship with him before you recorded with him.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, me and him became really, really good friends. And, me and my wife go up and hang with him and for a couple of days, we'll just, not music related. So yeah, he's kind of taken me under his wing and taught me a lot about the music business. Those, let me just, someone was calling me. I just wanted to hit a deny call. Hold on one second.
It's all right, man.
Yeah. So he, we had landed a lot of Tesla tours after that. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So we ended up doing about 50 more shows with Tesla over the years.
Okay.
Yeah, like big national tours. The Tesla relationship, started with Brian, but we really, we got, he got us on some really, really prolific tours with them around the country, which was just huge for us. It taught us how to tour, how to be a
good band to go on tour with. They're a pro, and one of them ended up joining your band, which we'll get to in a minute. What I wanted to ask you is, we can get back to that, but I was wondering, were you getting? I know there's a couple of DJs who have contributed to my show, Mike Newman and Destiny Costa. So I imagine you must have got on the radar of the DJs in this area too. And did that translate around the country for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I got to start Mark Skin, that whole Mark Skin family, Mark Skin Radio family with Chris and all of them. I mean, they've Adam, and there's so many of them. They've been so supportive, and they still are. But they were with us since day one. I think it was Destiny. And ultimately she was the first one who gave us support. It gave us that nudge, that push, and it just kind of snowballed or spiderwebbed from there. And I mean, everything helps it, at this point, or being a local startup band. So having them was huge. I mean, we can't thank them enough, but there was definitely support. It was like the internet radio support. We never really got, how radio, FM and stuff, we didn't get too much support.
Yeah, it doesn't mean as much anymore. Yeah.
Right.
So let me get this straight. You haven't had a manager or a agent or anything like that. You've been doing it all yourself pretty much.
Yeah. So I've been kind of acting as all of that. And again, I was never opposed to it. I'm not that guy that's like, oh, I can do it all myself. We don't need it. But it's one of those things where I've been around the block with so many bands coming up, and, you kind of learn how to do it yourself. So you just do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I, with an open mind of, hey, I'm not against having a record label. I'm not against having a manager. I'm not against having a booking agent, but until one, comes in our path, then we'll listen. I've always been open to listening.
Yeah, the industry's changed a lot. I come from the labels, so I know. But there aren't a lot of labels anymore. They don't really exist the way they used to. So you have to do it yourself. Talk about Artificial Mind and where you recorded it and what that process was like.
Yeah, so again, my relationship and the band's relationship was pretty strong with the whole Tesla band. especially me and Brian. Like, again, we were talking every day on the phone. I was visiting him. We were hanging out. And, we agreed that we just kind of came to an agreement that why don't we write at the time it was an album. It ended up being an EP just because we wanted to get something out. And I would go up to New York to where he lives, and we would flesh out ideas, and so I would show him some riffs, and he would go, "What do you got? What do you got? Some riffs." So I would go through my phone and go, "All right, how about this one?" He'd go, no, how about this one? And then he would, whatever ones he liked, we would put off to the side, and that's kind of how.
How many songs did you hit him with before you narrowed it down?
I forget, because they weren't really songs, because the way I do it, before I go too crazy with writing full songs, I'll write just a couple riffs that kind of sound cohesive together.
Yeah.
So, I'll just put a drum beat on, and I'll just a drum loop or a drum beat or whatever, and I'll just write to it. And then I just kind of save them and save them and save them. And so I was bringing them up, stuff from 5-6 years ago up until stuff that I wrote 2 weeks before. And he had liked a few of everything, So we ultimately, then we'd have Johnny, our singer, come up to New York with us, and they would write some vocal melodies over some demo tape stuff. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, and then when we had a solid idea, we started rehearsing them as Bad Marriage. And then we ultimately went to his studio, which was in Sacramento at the time, and where Tesla's from. So that was kind of during the pandemic.
You went to California to record?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we flew
Nice.
to his studio, and he had a nice studio apartment there. So the whole band crashed there. And I don't know if you know, we have the singer from Tesla, Jeff, on 3 of those songs. He's singing.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was cool because he drove down from where he lived and hung out with us. And again, we were all super tight at this point because we've been touring with them. So, when you tour with a band for multiple shows, I mean, you see each other at the hotels, you see each other, in the dressing rooms, just in passing. So, they're either going to like you or they're not going to. So I was always, really careful about how we presented ourselves, and not to, be that band that they're rolling their eyes every time they see us, like, oh God, they're those Bad Marriage boys again. Like, so, but everyone was cool. And we knew it, we learned fast, how to give them their space, and still we still had a great time,
Now, Scott didn't join the band until after you recorded the EP, right?
Tommy, you mean?
Tommy, sorry. He didn't
Yeah.
join, excuse me, Tommy. He didn't join until after you recorded
Yeah. Yeah, no. So we recorded that EP. Jeff sang on 3 of the songs. And that was the only, that was when like I said, I let go of the reins of the recording and mixing process.
Was that hard for you to do?
You know what? Again, like I even said about management and booking, I'm always open to it. I'm not that guy who's like, nope, it's all me. I was, Brian's been a part of a band that sold 30, 40 million, whatever it is. I mean, he's been a part of some of the greatest rock songs in history. So for me to not welcome him in that process, I'd be doing myself and the band a disservice, So I was excited, and I learned from Brian. Again, I was there the whole time. So I was learning, just watching him, and he would teach me. And the cool thing is he let me be the mastering engineer. So I did have a hand in it still. So he mixed it and engineered it, and I mastered it. So it was cool. And I'm happy with the way it sounds. I think it sounds a little different than what we have done, but I'm cool with that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, the song and the video for Artificial Mind is fantastic, man.
Cool. Yeah.
Was it right after that you did the Enough Is Enough Choir Boys tour? Great tour, by the way.
Yeah, that was a blast, and that was No, we had done, what did we do? We did a tour with Buck Cherry before that. So we did, I think, three different tours with Tesla over, I think, 3 years or 2 or 3 years. Um, and again, that was really, really, really good for us because we were playing 1,500 to 3,000 seaters. So these were theaters, these were big theaters, these were House of Blues
Yeah.
type places. So we were really thrown right in the mix of the big boy world, and we loved every minute of it. So
Did you guys have
um,
enough merch and stuff to cover those dates? Yeah, so you did
oh
good
yeah,
with
so that
merch.
that again, this is from all of us being huge fans of the way things used to be, like you mentioned earlier, with vinyl, with T-shirts. I'm a vintage T-shirt collector, so I can't be in a band that appreciates that and not have cool stuff.
Well, I think I found that out the day I met you because I very rarely see a Badlands shirt anywhere.
Yeah,
So when I saw that, I'm like, what is that doing here?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we've always, and you learn along the way. Look, have we sold out of stuff on the road and lost money because we should have had, a couple more sizes? Yeah. But you learn quick and you prepare yourself for the road because that's the only way you're making money on the road is your
Ex
T-shirts, your
yes.
hoodies, your vinyl, your CDs. Um, and we sell a ton of stuff on the road. Um, you know, we've proven to ourselves that we can sustain ourselves because we've seen it night after night. We get off stage, we get our stuff off, and we hustle to the merch booth, and we are there hanging out with everybody. We are taking pictures, we're signing whatever, we're just shooting the shit with people, and that's what we love doing. And it is worked tenfold for us. Um,
Got a great
so
vibe, man. That's exactly what you need to do. That's fantastic.
yeah, and,
Um,
and all the guys they know, they're trained. There's no time to play rock star. It's go out there and meet people. You know what I mean? And that's just the way we've always been, and we're still like that today. And I believe we always will be. I mean, it's just who we are. Um, so so the tour with Enough's Enough and the
You
Choir
know,
Boys.
the reason I asked about that is the Choir Boys. I always thought that they were one of the most underrated bands that they never got the attention. So when I saw
Right.
that, I was like, that's an interesting tour.
Yeah, those dudes are so cool. They're one of our closest friends now because of that. And again, we that was a tour we got. Now try and think about this. That tour was 22 shows in just the month of July.
Wow.
So like that's almost six. That's 5 or 6 a week. It was just, but we all absolutely loved it. The Enough's Enough family. We are so tight with them. We've done multiple tours with them. We did a
Everyone loves Chip, right?
Oh yeah, Chip calls me on the phone, and we will just, I don't know, 2 3 weeks ago, call me, and we just shoot the shit. 45 minutes. My wife's listening to us laughing, and we just, again, that's what happens when you build camaraderie and relationships on the road, and these dudes that you look up to or think that they're these big rock stars. They're most of the time they're just normal, cool people that have the same, you know, dreams and aspirations as you do. So, you
Yeah,
know,
they've been at it for a long time, those
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Um, the Dangerous single and video, that hasn't been on a record, has it?
right. So I gotta say, before that that tour with the Choir Boys and Enough's Enough is the tour that we got Tommy. So
Right.
it's a very significant tour because we were going on the tour with or without Tommy. Now, Tommy, I had met on, we had played the Monsters of Rock cruise. Bad Marriage did. We played two of them, but the one we played initially, Tommy was in a band at the time, and they were playing it too. So Tommy hasn't been in Tesla for since I think 2007, 2008, but he was an original founding member. He
Yeah.
was in that band for like 21 years or something. So, you know, um, so all of our touring with Tesla, Tommy hadn't been in the band for a long
That's a
time.
weird coincidence.
Oh,
Wow.
super crazy.
I didn't
Um,
realize that. Wow.
yeah. So so I always was wondering, I wonder if I'll ever meet that Tommy guy. I mean, we're so close with Tesla, minus Tommy. So on the Monsters of Rock cruise, I met Tommy. I went right up to him, introduced myself. We started shooting the shit about, musician stuff, guitars and amplifiers.
Yeah.
And we ended up exchanging numbers. And one day I posted a riff that became dangerous. Okay. I posted it on my Facebook page. Now, me and Tommy have been friends for about a year now. And he commented on Facebook, like something like, dude, that's a killer riff, whatever. And so I just messaged him or texted him or whatever, said, hey, man, that's a new Bad Marriage idea. If you want to, play on it, write a solo to it or something, feel free. And that was the start of two things. That was the start of him being a member of Bad Marriage and that song Dangerous.
Wow.
So when we finished the song Dangerous with him, he just sent me his track. So he recorded them at his house, sent them to me. I put them right here into the studio session. And I was just like, this sonically takes Bad Marriage to a different place, and I'm like, this sounds really, really cool. And it's different, but it still sounds like Bad Marriage. So I'm like, I think I'm onto something here. How can I get this guy in the band? And if so, can he even do it? I mean, he's not young, you know what I mean? And so I knew we had this tour coming up with the Choir Boys. And I'm like, this is in the middle of July. It's going to be 100 degrees where we're going. Texas, we went all over the South. And I go, it's 22 shows. I go, I don't think this guy can do that or would even want to. There's no pay involved. So ultimately, I said, hey, Tommy, I go, hey, you want to tour with us as a third guitar player? I go, I basically said it's 22 shows in July. It's going to be brutal. And there's no money in it. And he said, yeah, I'll do that. So I'm like,
Wow.
if that's not rock and roll, like I said, I don't know what is. So that tour was the test for a lot of things. It was a test for him. It was the test for us having a dealing with another guy that we don't really know. I mean, I know him because we've been texting and talking on the phone, but you don't know somebody after
Until
a
you,
year,
until you're with them every day, right?
Yeah, and he's no longer in Tesla. So but you know what? Brian Wheat was pushing me to get him. He always said very, very positive things about Tommy. Says he's a great guy, a great songwriter, and he said he would be great for your band.
That's
And
fantastic. Thanks for
so,
giving me a nice clip there for the promo spot. That was great.
yeah. So
You
I
also
know it's I
go
know it's
ahead.
long. I know it's kind of long-winded, but that Choir Boys tour with Enough's Enough was very, very important in Bad Marriage, kind of lore or history, because it was when Tommy had joined, and it was brutal on the road, but we had a blast, and he's still here with us today. So it proves that guy can rock, and it's been a wild ride.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
I know you did. You said you did a cruise. You did another cruise in 2024, or was that the one of the two that you were talking about?
Yeah, it was this past one. We did a tour with Glenn Hughes and Enough's Enough with Tommy. So our second tour was with Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple and Enough's Enough and us. Yeah, and that
I
was
did not
insane.
know about Glenn Hughes. That's fantastic. I'm a big Glenn Hughes fan. I
Yeah, and
mean,
that
those
again.
Purple records he did, the three that he was in the band, were fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just surreal because I can remember one memory. We were at a place. We were in Detroit, the Token Lounge, it was called. Now we had played there with Enough's Enough and the Choir Boys, so this was our second time going there. Really cool spot. This was our first show with Glenn Hughes, and we're setting up on stage for sound check, and I see Glenn Hughes out in the, he's just at one of the tables talking to somebody, and I'm going, holy shit, there's Glenn Hughes, it's pretty cool. And all of a sudden I see him walk up to the stage, and he goes down, like looking up at us because he was on the floor, goes, one by one. Hey, very glad to have you guys on the tour. I'm Glenn. What's your name? What's your name? And then just seeing him and Tommy shake hands, and I'm looking at Tommy on the stage with me, and it was a cool moment for me to go.
Wow.
I got this guy from Tesla who's just a complete badass guitar player. Then I got Glenn Hughes, who's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's just that was a moment I'll never forget. But that Glenn Hughes tour was great. And then yes, we did the cruise, so that was killer too.
Wow. Okay. You blew me away with that. That's so cool. So I'm looking at the future now. Andrew Vandenberg, you doing some dates with him next year, right?
Yeah, so well this year, God, I can't. Yeah, it's already
Oh
20.
yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
I'm still in 2024, I guess. I apologize.
I think we all are. So Adrian Vandenberg, it's another cool story. I met him on the cruise. He was a member of Whitesnake for a
Oh
long
yeah.
time. Phenomenal guitar player. His band Vandenberg is amazing. I saw them on the cruise a couple years back, and I've been a fan ever since. Um, and I became friends with his manager, Johan, and we were hanging out one night. We played a big festival twice called Monsters on the Mountain, and that was in Gatlinburg. And that's when I met Johan, and me and him just became buddies. Just again, it's all about the downtime. It's about hanging out, being around, and just being cool and wanting to hang out and not being that annoying dude. And just be a part of everything. And
I think they used to
again,
call that schmoozing.
yeah, but there's a fine line.
Yeah,
There's a
I
fine
know.
line of over schmoozing.
You don't
Uh,
seem like an overbearing kind of guy, though, so I can understand how you could become friends with all these people.
yeah, look, if you think, you gotta want to belong, and it took me a little bit because, for a while you look at people and you're like, wow, those are the guys in Tesla, or those are the guys in, that's Eddie Money. Oh my, but then when you start to think, you start realizing that you're there, but for a reason too. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you start going, okay, well, start getting some confidence, and you just carry yourself. Like I told you what Brian said to us the first day he met us, Brian Wheat said, I like the way you guys carry yourself, so he saw something in that. And I'm proud of that because, it's me picking the members of the band. I had a good idea from the music scene growing up that these people in the band have what it takes to act according. I know they can sing, I know they can play guitar, I know they can play drums, but there's more to the business than just playing on stage. It's how to act off stage and how to carry yourself. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Do you have a new recordings and a plan for new recordings?
Yeah, so Dangerous was the first single. We did a music video for it too. That was the first
Good
single.
video.
Thank you. Yeah, it was cool. And that was our first video showcasing Tommy. Um, and I thought it came out really good. And he's
Yeah.
playing all these crazy leads all over it. It's just really cool. It sounds just different, And but so that was the first single that we put out that's on our upcoming full length. And I don't want to say too much, but we are in talks with another entity that might have something to do with putting the album out. So if it doesn't happen, or it does, either way, we still have a full length album coming
Yeah,
out.
I don't see you saying we're going to do it. I see it coming no matter what. I can tell
Yeah,
by
yeah,
your personality, man.
yeah.
You know?
So we're hoping it works out. Again, like I said, I've always been open to, new members of the team. Put it that way. If we're on the same page and we think we can push the needle, and move the band forward, and so we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, that has delayed the process a little bit. We were hoping to have started pre-orders. We have an amazing core fan base that initially always helps us out, whether it's a pre-order for a CD or a vinyl or a T-shirt. It really helps us fund the stuff that we're doing. A lot of
little
people.
props to the fans, man. That's
Hell
good,
yeah!
man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. And we have a great group on Facebook, and it's a private group. It's called the Bad Marriage Society, and it's got 3,500. We have 3,500 Bad Marriage Society members, and I'm proud of that too because it's not a public group, so you can't just join. You have to want to join that. You know what I mean? So it's a powerful thing to have 3,500 just people that are there for bad marriage. You know, and if a fraction of them pre-order something, right? It helps us
Oh yeah.
because because everything is so expensive to do vinyl and CDs and shirts and so that's how we've been doing it and just building an army.
It's a great story, Mike, and I really appreciate you coming on, telling us all about it. I'm going to figure
Yeah.
out how to join that private group.
Yeah, I can send you an invite. It's cool. It is fun because all the band members are always chiming in and people just share really cool, videos, pictures, and we're very interactive on that, and I think a lot of them enjoy that too.
Thank you so much, man, for the time.
Yeah, of course, of
Appreciate
course.
it. Good luck, man.
Thank you, thank you.